I'm the Community Engagement Officer at the Museum of Oxford, and I'm leading the Museum of Oxford branch of Britain from Above, which we've called East Oxford from Above, and we're looking at aerial photographs of the East Oxford area. It's a really dynamic, interesting area of Oxford in Oxford's history. So, for example, the Morris car factory was set up by William Morris in 1913 and really expanded across the first half of the 20th century and was the biggest employer in the city, apart from the university. And we've come to follow the progress of one of those photographs, or two of those photographs, as they go through the digitisation process at English Heritage.
We retired to Oxfordshire about 5 years ago, and I became interested in the Museum of Oxford about 2 years ago when they were doing a project on sport, and I got enthused about that, and when they said that they were doing this next one, I thought I'd be even more interested because it would help me find out about Oxford, which is a new area for me.
Well, I've been a volunteer with the Museum of Oxford for several years, on and off, and I find the projects fascinating, especially this one with Britain from Above, mainly because I was actually brought up in East Oxford, so I'm actually exploring my home territory, and a lot of it is within my memory, though a lot of it obviously isn't. I also find it quite fascinating, the thought of the entrepreneurs going up in aeroplanes and linking it with photography and sort of putting it all together and making a wonderful historical record for us of how things used to be.
Peter, can you tell me a little bit more about how you came to work on Britain from Above in Oxford?
Well, I did it all through Museum of Oxford. I've been working with them for over 3 years now, originally in their original museum, which was on a wing of the town hall, which used to be a library. And then when they moved the museum into the town hall main area, I moved with it, and I've been working in their new museum there, as well as doing guided tours of the town hall, as well as becoming a part of creating these exhibitions.
I'm hoping to find out and clarify in my mind a little bit more of how the process evolves from the original negatives to the pictures that we have today.
So what are you hoping to get out of this day today, filming here at Britain?
Well, to go around and find out exactly how the films were made, what sort of cameras they used, how the digitalisation takes place. Anything you can tell us.
I'm just fascinated by this sort of conveyor belt of from broken pieces of glass to these amazing pictures. You know, how it sort of goes along this conveyor belt until the final exhibition, which we'll be putting on later this year.
So I'm the activity officer for England, so I coordinate and run activity across England, so that could be anything from a website workshop with 4 people up to a big public event in a town somewhere with, you know, up to maybe hundreds of people. In 2007, this collection of over 1.2 million photographs and around 4,000 photo albums got acquired by English Heritage and their partners, which are the Royal Commissions on the Ancient Historic Monuments of Wales and Scotland, because obviously we're talking about Britain from Above and not just England from Above. The Museum of Oxford is one of our community engagement partners. We run 16 community engagement projects across the country. That includes Wales and Scotland as well. And your project, the one you worked on in Oxford, is actually one of our first ones, so that's very close to my heart. It existed before I even started. And yeah, so you're one of our pioneers, if you like.
I'm the photographic conservator for Britain from Above, as well as the conservation manager. So I basically put the pieces back together.
So why do you think that the project is important?
For several reasons, actually. The project is important because it's conserving all negatives and very rare and valuable images as well.
And can you tell us in what condition the negatives arrived?
Well, they were stored in outdoor sheds, outdoor toilets, so we've got evidence of rodent damage on some boxes, some mold, some water damage. The first part of the collection was glass, So obviously being glass, it's fragile, so you had some broken ones as well as emotion healing, as well as cracked ones like this one, which has got a crack across it.
What's been your most difficult one to fix?
Well, I've taken pictures out of the ones that were more challenging. They were glass plates, and I wouldn't have done them if they weren't in a run, but as you can see they were shattered. So beyond, when you first looked at it you thought, I can't repair that. Because we use a process to repair broken glass plates, we use what's called a sink mat, which is a pressure binder. So basically you put pressure on the pieces to keep the bits together. But as you can see, they're so small that you just end up with bits all over the room and conserve to cry in the corner probably.
I am one of the team of digitisation officers. Our job is to digitise the images once they've been conserved and stabilised by the conservators. Digitising basically means turning the glass plate negative into a digital file that can then be worked on digitally in Photoshop and then from there put onto uploaded onto a website.
So the images you produce are actually very large files?
They are very large files, yes. We work at 1200 DPI at 16 bits. That produces a file up to about 50 to 60 megabytes. Once we've worked on the file size is reduced to the English Heritage Standard, which is 18 megabytes. That's at 300 DPI at 8 bits.
How long have you been working on this project? I've been here for just under a year and a half. I'm responsible for locating the images and also adding a bit of extra information to them, such as a date, place name, and also what the image actually shows as well.
Did they take photographs in these little biplanes in the 1920s, 30s? I mean, now I use a modern camera on a tripod and I still get camera shake. So what cameras did they use?
We know that when they started business in 1919, Aerofilms had a P-type aerial camera. We know that because it features in a photograph of a couple of members of staff with a Bible. A P-type camera was designed towards the end of the First World War, specifically for aerial use. It was the culmination of a series of developments from 1914, 1915 onwards. Is when you're in the air, in an open cockpit in a biplane, that all comes down to experience and to use. But it was a camera designed specifically for aerial work.
If I had to pick out one photograph, it's one I found in the archive, probably taken probably shortly after the war, and it's a shot down the Thames in London, and the lighting is very good. It's very, very clear, and you just see bridge after bridge after bridge, and as a Londoner that really makes me feel quite proud.
Well, it was lovely for them to give up their time to speak with us when they could be getting on with the processes that they were telling us about.
What stood out for me was everybody's enthusiasm. They really love their jobs. It's a rewarding job, I would think. You know.